Hey everyone, welcome to episode 68 of the Ceres podcast. In this episode we talk to Stuart Devine, MBE, from the Ashvale group. I've known Stuart for a good few years now, and what I genuinely love about him is that he isn't afraid to speak his mind. He's definitely not rude or intrusive, but he will just talk about topics in a well-thought, considerable manner. I suppose that's what makes him successful. We touch on so many topics, but importantly we talk about COVID, the price of oil and how it affects Aberdeen and his business, how he's been with his tenants over this and how his landlords have been with him, how his bank's been with him and what he's been doing with the government assistance. Overall, this was a great conversation, and Stuart really does help educate me on things that I really didn't know a lot about, especially when he has 140 employees across 8 locations, soon to be 7. If you want to know more about what we do, head over to theworldofceres.com, where you can learn about our product range but also read some of our articles. This week we've added an article to help you maximise all of the data that you're getting from all of your new click and collect apps. Hopefully our tips will help you retain some of the new customers that you've picked up from this process. We also talked to Tony Postlewaite from Priory Fish Bar and see how he's been getting on with Ceres and our products since he opened nearly 2 years ago. And we caught up with Simon Walsh, and he tells us about some of the great recipes that he's been making with our fish cake mix. Also, if you're looking for recipes in particular, anything from tartar sauce, let's say, to mushy peas, then don't look any further than our how-to guides on our blog. Anyway, on to the episode with Stuart. I really hope you enjoy. Hi Stuart, welcome to the Ceres podcast.
How are you, Stelios? Good to hear from you.
Yeah, well, I think it's good to hear from anybody these days. It's been a bit crazy, hasn't it?
It's been a strange times. It's been something that we've never experienced before, so it's certainly put a change on things, that's for sure,
How long have you been in the trade now?
Oh, gee whiz. I just turned 50, so I actually started working at the Ashvale when I was 15, so 35 years. 35 years.
And in 35 years, what's the closest thing you can think of to this?
Nothing like it at all. There's been, what we had, fishing cuts and quotas and problems with potato shortages, but nothing. This compares to world wars, I would imagine. This is just unprecedented. It's just incredible,
I suppose it's a very condensed version. Well, providing there's no second wave, 3 months, 4 months, it's quite a lot for people to go through in 3-4 months, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. When the whole thing unfolded earlier in the year, when you kind of thought, oh well, what's going to happen here? But no one's seen this coming. We've been locked down now for over 3 months, and it's like, wow, just a total life changer. Just as I say, you've got to hope this is a one-off.
I think that a few years ago, as in the UK, maybe the Western world, Europe, we would have looked at this as a very Asian problem. And I don't think we're going to treat it like that anymore. I think we're going to be a lot more quick off our feet to deal with these situations when they come again.
Yeah, I'm a great believer you've got to live and learn. Mistakes have been made. I don't blame anybody because we were never organised to cope with a coronavirus, right? Yeah, you've seen Chinese people go about with masks on for years now, and you've kind of looked at them strange and thought, why do they all wear masks? Now I think it's become a lot clearer, why they go about with masks on, because it's been a real eye-opener,
It's really weird. I went for a hospital appointment on Friday yesterday, and I walk in. There's a big sort of station there. It says sanitize your hands and put a disposable mask on. And then all the staff at the hospital were wearing masks. I was wearing a mask, and then I was trying to think about this, but I think 1 in 10 of people that were there were not. Oh no, only 1 in 10 of the people there were wearing a mask, aside from hospital staff, which was almost everyone. And I thought to myself, and I said to the nurse that I was seeing, she says, it's really hard getting people to understand, can they just wear a mask? Because it's really high risk here. And I think that some people in Britain just still haven't got their head around it, And I think there was that, well, I won the war mentality, or we won the war mentality.
Yeah,
but this is different.
Yeah, I don't like the "we won the war" mentality. I don't think the two actually tie in together, And sometimes that can backfire and really bite you in the backside, Wearing a mask, do I like wearing a mask? No, I don't. I don't like a mask. We can talk about it later, but we head back to work on Monday, and I've insisted that for now, all staff wear masks. Let's just get on with it, me included. I'll have my mask on. You can argue all day long whether a mask is right or wrong, but I think it's more right than wrong. So, and I also think from another person's perception, whether that be a customer or someone else sitting next to you in a hospital, I think you'd probably feel a little bit safer, if people wear masks. So, I think it's something we've got to get used to. If someone says in a month's time, take your mask off, we don't need him anymore, that'll be great news. But I just think of a wee bit of short-term pain, put the mask on, let's just get on with things, and let's hope that it's successful. If that's a small price you've got to pay to get rid of this thing, fine. Well, let's do it. Let's do it.
They're not asking for a lot, are they, when the government just tell us to stay home? They've sort of protected our businesses. They've protected our employees' lives. I think that all we had to do is just stay home. It wasn't hard, really. Well, it was hard, shall I say?
It was hard.
It
was hard. It's definitely been something you've never experienced in your life before. And then, of course, you say, right, it's at one point. I don't like to get involved too much in politics, because at the end of the day, like some Boris Johnson and Nicola Sturgeon and the leaders of Wales and what have you. I mean, you wouldn't take their jobs right now for all the money, and excuse the pun, but all the money in China. You would not take their job, because the job they've been given to do, they never trained or they never come into politics to have to fix a coronavirus, a pure pandemic where people are dying all around you. And that's not the reason why they come into politics. So they've kind of been thrown in at the deep end. I would say they've probably did a good job. They're going along from a day-to-day basis. Let's see, and they're learning something new every day, and they're changing their minds. That's life. That's what life's all about.
Especially when today's population are all armchair specialists. They sit behind a computer and they all say, oh, they're doing it wrong. Oh, this, oh, that. Like everyone's an expert. Yeah. And I'm not being funny. I sell batter. I'm not an expert about COVID. And as much as I like to read up on certain things, but I'm not going to sit there and be like, Sturgeon's got it wrong or Boris has got it wrong. In my view, they're getting the advice and they're dealing with it. And, we could argue that are they a week too late or a week too soon? But again, we're not in the position. Like, we just think we are.
Even when you mention batters, and you're an expert in batter, right? But I'm an expert in batter, right? So you come along to me and you show me something that I've never actually seen before, or it's something that I've learned after 35 years. Remember, I would take it on the chin. I would say, you know what, Stellis, thanks for showing me that, right? Because I'd never looked at that from that point of view. So, so politics is nothing different to cooking fish and chips, really. If there's another way to do it or a better way to do it, or did you ever stop learning? And like I say, no one got taught how to deal with coronavirus, and they've had to learn as they go along. And things will change, things, and they sort of like the idea that it'll all be linked to your mobile phones, or the tracing on your mobile phone.
Yeah.
Well, they got it wrong. They got it wrong. So you've got to say, sure, you can knock lumps out them and pick holes in them and say, well, imagine a government getting that wrong. But they've got to take it on the chin and say, look, we've got it wrong. Let's try and get it right. And if that takes a bit longer, then that's what you've got to do.
Instead of, I think sometimes it's all down to the media, and negativity sells and positivity doesn't. And if the media spent more time saying, wow, they set up a furlough scheme from nowhere, it didn't exist. The software was ready within 3 weeks. When the software was ready, they were doing 100,000 applications an hour, and that's me underdoing it. Like, instead of people saying, wow, this is the good things. No, they don't. They just say, oh, have you seen how many people died today? Oh, have you seen this negative story and that negative story? And, the media have had an abundance of negative stories. They've been, ramming Brexit down our throat. Before that, it was probably independence. It was there's always something that they're trying to split us all off on, and I think and I think this is just going to be the same as that. But I think it's amazing how the population haven't grasped that yet. You know, you see everyone on Twitter screaming constantly, and you just wonder how have they not figured out yet that we're being played.
Yeah, life's changed. I mean, you're younger than me, but in the good old days when I was a youngster, I mean, the news came on for half an hour at 10 o'clock at night, right? So it was the news at 10, right? So try fill a program with news for half an hour. You've got to get the biggest stuff in this half an hour, and that was it. But of course, news is now on 24/7. I mean, it's on every hour of the day. It's just continual. And I think the media has got a big part to play. I just think, like you say, it's all the negativity. They dwell on it. I mean, you know, there's been a lot of positives have come out of coronavirus. You know, there's a lot of things have happened that you'd have to say, wow, well done you. Like you say, the furlough system. I mean, think where the country would be right now if it didn't have a furlough system, right? I mean, if we would be in a different world. So you've got to take your hats off and say, you know, well done, government, because you made big decisions. You know, and not everything's went right, but there's been a lot of good they've done. You know, so. And then again, of course, the problem is as we get out of it, no one knows the best way out of this. So when of course, the negativity comes out again. You see the people on Bournemouth Beach, for example. You know, now is that a true picture? Is that really what happened in Bournemouth Beach? Right? Because if it is, you'd have to say, guys, what are you doing? You know, you went through 3 months of pain, and you could blow it all in 2 days. You know, just
I suppose their argument. Well, one thing I'd like to see is an aerial shot as opposed to a side shot.
Sure.
I think, for me, I think that would clarify all of it. Someone then sent, because I saw another photo the day after and it said, oh, look at us in Brighton, we did it right. But it was an aerial shot. Sure. And you're looking down.
They're all spaced out.
And they're all spaced out. Yeah. Now, it still may be the case that in Bournemouth, a lot of people did do that. And I'm guessing they probably did. In my view, the council should have shut it down and said no one's allowed here and doubled all the existing fines. But it does make you wonder, like, you know, we've gone to all this effort and yet people just sort of thought, stuff it, can't do it no more. I want to go to the beach. Yeah. And if, you know, and it probably turns out that it's the same people that didn't want to send their kids to school or didn't want to go back to work.
Sure.
You know? So look, again, but I think that is a negative story. And I think that I can understand why people would want to go to the beach, but it's a shame they just can't wait another couple of weeks. It's just, you know, one positive thing. I was listening to another podcast the other day, and a biologist was saying that there's some evidence that indicates that the virus doesn't spread very well outside in daylight.
Sure,
because in the UV light sort of kills it. So hopefully that's a happy accident and nobody and the numbers don't rise.
Yeah.
But then I was saying to someone yesterday, what we haven't seen is the numbers haven't risen since the first time, the bank holiday weekend, when everyone went to Bournemouth, because it happened then as well. And then a week after that, there was the riots. So I think if the numbers have stayed like okay, then maybe we're at the thick end of it now, maybe.
Yeah. Sure.
Has it been pretty bad in Scotland and Aberdeen?
No, not really. I mean, not really. I mean, how I see the pandemic panning out, basically, is it's obviously affected old people, right? So obviously there may have been mistakes made in the very start where they got in a hurry. We need all these hospital beds. Let's get the old people who really can be at home or in a home. Let's get them out of the hospital without a lot of thought. Because remember, it was all unprecedented. Nobody planned it. So they put the old people home to their homes or to the actual old folks' homes. And I think they would have to put their hand up and say that was a mistake. Because, you know, if you look through the death paper, you know, the paper, the acknowledgements in the paper, a lot of the deaths have been from old folks' homes, right? Now, you could argue that, you know, that these people were coming at the latter stages of their life anyway, but I think the coronavirus hasn't helped them, right? So I think there's been a lot of old people. Of course, once it gets in there, it's how you get it out again. It takes time. So you can see it come at an end now. So generally, there's not really much of a big coronavirus left in Scotland. You know, normal people tend to be going back to some sort of normality. There's no, I mean, you know, you've got lots of friends. The supermarkets employed loads and loads of people at the start who just brought in all the kids, and you think, Christ, that could be a dangerous place to be. But no, it's not. It's not. Tesco's is where I've got a local Tesco's, and no one there. I think there's one person at the very, very start had coronavirus symptoms, or may have actually tested positive, but no one else has had coronavirus in Tesco's. Now you'd think that would be the ideal ground for coronavirus, but no, it hasn't been the case. So I think the risks have been the Highlands. The Highlands have almost had nothing, But yet they've been shut down for 3 months now. So again, the argumentative person could say, "Well, that's ridiculous," But I understand the fear. I understand the dangers involved in the coronavirus. No one knew. It could have got out of hand. It could have killed millions of people as opposed to thousands, which would have led to a far, far bigger problem than we've actually got. But it's a difficult one.
I suppose the population density in the Highlands is quite low, I guess.
Yeah, they'd be pretty spaced out, yeah.
And I don't know about all of Scotland, but I do wonder if the population density of Scotland is less than England, especially some cities in England, I'd imagine.
Very much so, yeah. You've obviously got your big one being Glasgow, It's just quite heavily populated. But out with that, Aberdeen's, there's probably 350,000 throughout the region, which is sort of spread out. So it's not that. It's nothing like the Birminghams and the Liverpools and what have you,
Do you think you'd like to see more of a location by location sort of policy rather than just saying we're shutting down all of Scotland, all of you stay home? Now we can maybe move on and say, well, if it erupts in Aberdeenshire, then we can deal with it there, but Glasgow can carry on as it was, and vice versa.
I think it was. I thought of this a while back, and I thought that's a really good idea. But of course, let's open up the Highlands again. How do you do that? How do you control someone from, unless you're putting border controls in regions? How do you actually do that? I mean, there's talk of let's rebuild Hadrian's Wall, So it's all right talking these things, but actually putting them into practice could lead to a lot of difficulties, So maybe you're all in it together. I do think as we're coming out of it, I think was it Beijing? They actually locked down Beijing again because it became a serious, so lock it down. That might be the case. God forbid, but if London was to start to build again, maybe you have to lock London down. So I do think there may need to be some sort of regional differences as we go along. But as I say, who knows? I mean, there's a very good professor from Aberdeen, Hugh Pennington. He's one of I think he's believed to be the world's leading food scientist, and he actually said, this virus, like other viruses, could disappear as quickly as it arrived. Right? Yeah. Now you'd have to say, well, let's keep our fingers crossed. Let's actually keep our fingers crossed. I mean, he normally gets it pretty right. But again, we need to be careful.
Yeah, I think the downside with it coming as quick as leaving as quick as it came is that it's hard to sort of pin down a proper vaccine because it evolves once it comes back again. So it'd be a different strain. But no, it's true. I think, it is unprecedented. I know that is the most overused word this year, but I do think it is unprecedented that this thing has just came out of the blue, and if you think it started in China in, let's say, November, although they say December, it's still July now in the, so it's crazy. It's just crazy how fast it's gone. Yeah. But what sort of consequences has it had on the Ashvale group?
It's had pretty big consequences. I mean, when the lockdown came, I mean, the week or two before the lockdown, obviously the rumours were out, and then there's a few headlines, and I mean, sales basically started to fall off a cliff. We're standing there in our restaurants at a weekend, and it was probably the weekend before the official lockdown, and we're thinking, what the hell is going on here? Where's our customers? So of course, therefore, no one knew what to do. You've got too much potatoes. The suppliers of the fish are sitting and say, look, you haven't ordered any fish. As well, we don't need any. So the thing had a major impact, and there was panic. The staff are like, what do we do? Are we going to have jobs? Thankfully, the government, like I say, moved in pretty quickly. I mean, the Chancellor, I'm very impressed with him. I think he came out of nowhere. I never heard him before, but I think he's stood up and stood out like a sore thumb, and I take my hat off to him. So they put these systems in place, but we now employ about 140 people. So to shut down was probably the right decision. Although you had to say, well, is this the right thing to do? I think shutting down, because when you're dealing with, we're running 8 different locations and 140 different people, you kind of thought, we've got to do what's right for everyone here. So locking down was quite an easy decision. Obviously, not knowing that you would be locked down. When we reopen on Monday, Monday's our reopening day. That'll be a day short of 14 weeks. We've actually been closed. So. Wow. In the actual start, there was a wee bit of grievances. You've obviously got to deal with staff. You've got to say, look, we are hoping that everything turns out all right. And I'm still sitting here, and I'm very, very hopeful. I'm quite excited about Monday. I think it's gave you a period of time, a thought, to actually look at your business, which can never be a bad thing. So we're going back on Monday with lots of new ideas, lots of fresh ideas. And it's quite exciting,
So what's the split? You've got 8 locations. Are they all restaurants and takeaways, or?
Most of them have got a restaurant. Yeah, there's 2 of this. Well, we're going down to 7 units now. So we're actually about to sell a unit. So we're going down to 7 units. So of which 5 are restaurant takeaways and 2 are just takeaways. So,
and have you managed to keep open in any way, shape, or form?
No, we didn't. We completely closed. Like I say, we just felt it was probably the right thing to do. We're dealing with so many staff and management and supervisors, and we just thought, different. And I take my hats off to these guys. These one-man operators. They've got their own shop. They go in, they get their staff round about them, and they lead by example. I'm totally in favour of that tonight. A lot of them have done a very, very good job. I mean, I've visited quite a few fish and chip shops over the last period, and I've been very impressed with how they've done it. So hats off to these guys. But I just felt, from our point of view, let's just stay as we are. We did set a date about 6 weeks ago. It'll be 6 weeks on Monday. We did decide, I put a date on it, says let's get the places open again. I set the date of the 29th of June. This is June, is it? You've got to remember which month we're in now. I set a date of 29th of June, and I stuck to it. And we then started putting plans in place to what we need to do. And by Monday the 29th, which is this Monday coming, we will just about fulfill our plans. So everything we put in place. And you know what? It's taken 6 weeks. It's taking 6 weeks to do. It's going to be a race against time on Monday to make sure the new apps and what have you are working, because it's as I say, it's exciting, but there's staff they're eager to go. I've been to quite a few staff meetings now. We had one big one in our big site in Aberdeen, the Great Western Road. We had about 15 staff in yesterday. Obviously, having a bit of a spring clean and getting all organised. And then we had a sort of team brief, and we had a chat to all the staff. And everyone's ready to get back to it. I think once you get over that hurdle, because again, the danger in Scotland is you give somebody 14 weeks off, they'll never want to go back to work, But I think the staff accept that, you've got to get back to real life at some point. Now's the time to do it. Let's just get on with it. But again, hats off to the furlough system. So the staff are able to be brought back. We are working on reduced hours to see how we go. But from a financial aspect, the furlough system will help to break staff back in. So all good. We're ready to go.
What other changes have you sort of implemented for Monday?
The biggest, what have we done in the lockdown? We've done a bit of decorating. We've refurbed 2 restaurants to bring them in line with the other ones that we'd already done. So the restaurants are looking great. We reviewed our staff training. We did have online staff training. All the training's done online, from their induction to their cook safe system to health and safety to risk assessments. So we were never quite happy with it. It worked on some people's phones. It never worked on other phones. So we managed to take time to review the whole thing. We've now got it all working on someone's phone. So we said to the staff, 140 staff, let's just do all the training again. Let's just start from fresh, just to keep everything nice and fresh. And of course, we added COVID-19. So the COVID-19 has been added to it. So all our staff are coming back fully trained. They're well aware of the circumstances behind COVID-19, how we need to deal with it, how to deal with customers, because obviously the customers are going to come in, they're going to be under close scrutiny. We must be able to how to deal with it. I've been to many supermarkets. I've been to B&Q. And some of the staff there, how they deal with the situation, I think has been absolutely appalling. How they speak to customers, it's like, God, it's almost like they're giving the Sergeant Major badge, Now, I don't want that happening in my shops. I want staff to say, look, we totally understand your feelings towards the thing, and you're taking precautions, and so are we. So let's just do this together. If there's something that we think we could be doing better, we will take that on the chin, because there's nothing worse. I just think it's no different whether you work in B&Q or a fish and chip shop. Customer service has got to be the thing forward, and it just annoys the hell out of me when I see this bad relation. Someone thinks they've got their I'm in charge badge on, and you'll stand there. It's okay, just calm down, So we did that. So we did all the training. So that's been a good thing. And then the biggest aspect that we've done, which again, other fish and chip shops have done the same thing, and I'm sure you're well aware of it, is it seems to be that the actual system of running a fish and chip shop it's been modernised. We brought in the app. We always had an online ordering system, but now, of course, we actually for many years now, as part of our company, we had a company selling what you would originally call a till or a cash register. Now, of course, it's EPOS systems. So we've had this company within our company for a long time, purely to service our own systems. And the guy who runs it for us, he's never been that happy with me because I've probably never invested that much money. I've always had decent EPOS systems, but he's always met me and says, Stuart, you really need to tie this all into one. You can have the greatest system of monitoring, whether it be sales or what's moving and when it moves, all these sort of things. So I kind of put it off. This has given us a chance, and like I say, it's taken 6 weeks to do it. But so when we open up Monday, we will have an app in place, which obviously will continue to do the delivery system. Then, of course, the click and collect system. And then finally, going by Nicola Sturgeon, hopefully, the 15th of July, our restaurants will open. And the app will also double up in the restaurant. So, the customer can come in, go on their phone, order their fish and chips, their cup of tea, their pint of lager, whatever it might be in the restaurants. The whole thing's tied into one. So that's a really exciting aspect. Obviously, we've still got to consider the customers we have and we've always had who would not be keen on an app. So that's what we're going back to do on Monday. So just make sure these people that are accounted for, that they can still phone us and order their fish and chips or come into the restaurant and be served by a lovely girl or a guy. So we've got to look after these ones as well. But the world has changed. Technology has moved. It's moving very, very quickly. Our guys who sell the EPOS systems, they are inundated with business. Unfortunately, the app providers are struggling, and no wonder, because everybody just wants the same thing at the same time. So it's interesting. It's quite exciting. It actually feels in a funny way, even after 35 years, that you're opening up a new business on Monday.
Yeah.
And you've got a little bit of butterflies, which is never a bad thing. A wee bit how you feel like on Christmas Day. We normally serve around about 300 customers on Christmas Day, and we're in our big restaurant. And you always go to your work on Christmas Day with butterflies in your stomach, Yeah. You don't want to spoil someone's Christmas Day by not getting it right. So that's the challenge. And Monday will bring challenges. But I'm sure we'll take them. We'll take them well, and we'll be. Yeah. No,
So I was going to say, like, do you envisage sort of? You said you're going to have shorter opening hours. Do you see yourself having like a smaller menu initially to get started?
We've taken a few things off the menu. Some of the things in some of the smaller shops, like say baked potatoes, we've kind of made it as a choice, right? Take them off, and especially the two shops where there's no restaurant, right? We've taken a few products off the menu, but you know what? We've had you'll find it. You probably know yourself. Scottish menus tend to be quite large. And we're kind of used to working with large menus, so it's no real big deal. So as we go along, we have reduced the hours at the moment. We're opening from 4:30 till 8:30 every day. Now, again, with 35 years behind us, we've been very used to working long hours. Guys in the work from 8 o'clock in the morning, going home at 10, 11 o'clock at night. That's a normal working day. I would leave my house at 10 past 8 on a Friday morning, and if I'm home by between 11 and 12 o'clock midnight, that's quite a good night, That the days of that might be over. Who knows? Who knows? What I've said to the staff is, look, because they're obviously very conscious of the fact that some guys are used to working 45, 55 hours a week. So right now they ain't getting that. So we've kind of got till October to kind of establish because of the furlough system is on till at least the end of October. I personally believe that they might continue a while longer for our sector, which I would certainly welcome. But it gives us certainly from now till end of October to establish what kind of business we've got. If anything, because of the 35 years doing it for, our wage bills have actually probably become too high.
Yeah.
Because, not so much restaurants, but takeaway trade at lunchtime has definitely dropped off over the years. Years and years ago, our takeaways were mobbed at lunchtime, but trends have changed. Subways, all these sort of things have come along. So the lunchtime trade in takeaways is never going to be the same as what it used to be. But of course, we just kept ploughing on because that's what we always did. So it may be that lunchtimes. No, we might not go back to lunchtimes. The big one in Aberdeen, yeah, probably. I mean, it can do 100 lunches a day, so you would probably go back to that. But bear in mind, a lot of people throughout Britain. I mean, because fish and chips is so traditional and such an institutional thing in Britain, you'll find that a lot of old people. When I say old people, retired, or part of their weekly, schedule, what they do every week includes going for fish and chips. So right now, you would think, will they be jumping back on the 15th? Or will they still be shielding? We'll wait and see. We've got to, as I said to the managers, we've just got to keep our eyes open, our ears open. We've got to move at the time when it's the right thing to do. So if we decide lunchtimes, let's go for it again, we'll do it. But it's definitely gave us that scenario where we've said, right, let's look at how the business is run. And if we feel that things could be changing, let's change with it. So it's just refreshing. It just gives us a wee bit of a refresher,
Yeah, no, definitely. And how have you managed? Are all your sites freeholds, or are they a blend of sort of rented and owned?
We have, of the 7 that will be operating now, there's 2 that are on leases, which we also have a few properties that we lease. So when the coronavirus came along, we thought, right, fair's fair. Let's speak to our people who lease properties from us, and we gave them the offer of, let's reduce the rent by half. Okay, so let's the landlord be us being the landlord. Let's us take half the pain, and you take half the pain, which I thought was completely fair. 1 or 2 of them came back. Everyone came back to us and said, "Yeah, that's absolutely great, Stuart." 1 or 2 of them might say, right now we're shut, I don't have money, to which we says, that's okay, let's worry about it later, which I think is the fairest thing to do. So, once they get up and running, like the one's a health spa, for example, so you can understand that there's no business there. So we said, that's okay, let's just discuss it once we're all back to normal, well, how we get back to, paying up and that. So these things were simple. Our landlords, if anything, I'd have to say a little bit disappointed. I wrote them the same letter. I put in the fact that government was looking at the system, how they may actually make it legislation of deferring rent or halving rent or adding on the end of a lease. One landlord agreed to the half and half, which I thought was okay. But at the same time, he spoke about a rent review, which I kind of thought was a rather strange time to discuss a rent review. So that was okay. That one was kind of sorted out. The other landlord was a guy from London, not interested in the slightest. You'll pay the full rent. It's your tough luck. You can pay half right now, but you're not getting off with a penny, which kind of leaves a bad taste. I think it's poor. Of course, maybe it's an area that the government have not as of yet tackled completely, right? Because it's all right for me to say, look, landlord, you're being horrible, I'm giving you half a rent, but you've got to make sure their side's sorted out as well, to ensure that they're getting some sort of support from the government, because they may well just have a great big mortgage on the property, so they need that money coming in as well. So I think it's something that government hopefully will. I know. There's been a lot of discussions. I know even through the Fish Fryers Federation, they've been involved in lobbying a government about this situation, because I'm sure there'll be many, many fish and chip shops throughout the country that'll be in exactly the same situation. So hopefully there will be some sort of resolve, because the fish and chip shops tend to be one-man operators, whereas like McDonald's and Burger King, they can just storm in and tell their landlord what they're paying and take it or leave it. Hence, you can see that it's causing big, big problems for the guys who own these great big shopping malls. because they seem to be they're going to have quite a hard time, So it's probably the one area that the financial aspect hasn't been sorted out.
Yeah.
So let's keep an eye on it and let's just see what happens. So,
talking of shopping malls, I wonder if their day is done.
I mean, shopping malls is, Aberdeen's a prime example. The shopping malls have taken over, right? Did it affect our business? Yeah. Oh, yeah, because every shopping mall's got, 15 restaurants that are family-orientated type businesses, with cinemas, of course. So the big one in Aberdeen, when it opened, it did change our business. It changed how busy we were. We still had a great tea time trade, but that after 7 o'clock sort of trade kind of died off because most families have now gone to the cinema and they're eating in these, all-in-one places, which from a parent's point of view, they're great because your kids could go on a bus and the bus tends to go straight into the shopping mall. Your kids are pretty safe. So I don't criticise shopping malls. You probably wish they weren't there. The days of the high street, how, it's easy for says, let's get the high street fixed. How do you fix a high street? The days of thousands of people going up and down high streets, it's changed, life's changed, and one of the things that's gone with it is high streets. So, Aberdeen, as I say, is a prime example because the high street, which was a granite mile, a mile long road. I don't know if you've been on Union Street in Aberdeen. It's a mile long road made of granite. I mean, the buildings should be silver and shining. And if you go down the street now, it's run down. The buildings are black. It needs a bit of investment. But how do you actually get shops back in there? Because that's a problem. That's a serious problem, So
I was just Mike Ashley that owns Sports Direct. He was saying that there needs the likes of Amazon and all that lot need to pay the right amount of tax. He included himself in this. All the online businesses, if they pay the right amount of rates, the right amount of taxes, and then you reduce rates in town centres, free parking, but the councils will need to do something big initially, like you say, to get the people to go there in the first place. As in the restaurants, someone comes to you and says, hey, Stuart, we'd like you to build an Ashvale on this high street. You're going to say, well, it's a 3-year risk, because I've got to wait for you to fix everything. So I wonder that, so I think there is a lot of ideas, but it's whether they, do you just let the future carry on, or do you?
It's a mega challenge, and I don't know where you are, whether they've done anything similar. But what they're doing now is, and it's obviously funded from government, and it's to do with the coronavirus. But they've obviously put a lot of money the council's way to close off streets, right? And again, I think it's been rushed. I think it's been done with very little thought. So what they've basically done is they've taken these town centres, which are already struggling, and they've closed them off to all traffic. So in theory, you think, that's good, that's pedestrianising, and people will come out and flock. But remember that the shops are not there in the first place. So what are they coming out to? And the shops that are there are now thinking, no one's going to come. So how the hell do they get here? Because there's no parking facilities, and they've done this in a lot of little towns around the northeast of Scotland. It's like, I mean, one of our busy restaurants is going to be affected because they've shut. There was a parking precinct in front of it which would park about 30 cars right along the front, and they've decided to close it off. So you're now going to think, how on earth do people get anywhere near it? So in a situation at a time like this, when you're needing as much help as you can, it's like, oh my God, what are you doing?
I was chatting to a chap last week on the podcast, and he had restaurants in London. And he said he remembers they closed off a road in Camden. And he said everyone thought it was amazing in Camden. But he said if you jumped in your car and then tried to drive around it, he goes, it was just carnage for about 10 roads in every direction. He goes, because you don't realise how that one road does a lot of work. So then just to close it off, and everyone feels like, oh, that's nice, but you don't actually see the carnage that ends up everywhere else.
They've knocked off main arteries. Is it going to help the situation? No, definitely not. Definitely not going to help the situation. I just think it's one of these rush jobs, no discussion, very little thought, and it's like, I mean, there seems to be, unfortunately, there's too much of that nowadays. There's things that happen, you think, come on, guys, give us a break.
They do things just to please people, but they don't think of all the knock-on effects. How did you find working with banks through this? Did you need to apply for any loans or the grants or anything?
We did. We prospered from a few grants, which were fine. I mean, obviously we've spent quite a lot of money to get back up and going, so the grants were certainly helpful. We did take one of the retention loans, which is great because it secured everything. It made us we were able to pay off all our creditors, so we could sit here and not being due anyone any money, which is always a good thing. So that gave us a wee bit of peace of mind. Of course, we now have a plan to get back to work to get money in, basically. That loan from the government is kind of like free for a year. So we're keen to get back to get the money in, and hopefully in a year's time the loan is paid back, and you can go from there. So we deal with the RBS, the Royal Bank of Scotland. We've dealt with the Royal Bank of Scotland for certainly my working life, 35 years and more, in fact. So we've always had a pretty good relationship, but of course you're never 100% convinced, sure, that are guaranteed that they're going to look after you. But I would say on this particular occasion, no problem whatsoever. It was very, very swift. It was very, very quick, a wee bit like the furlough system. So that really was a major. I mean, sure, it gave me a few sleepless nights at the very start, hoping it would all work. But it did work, and I wrote a letter to the Royal Bank of Scotland thanking them, because I'm sure there's people who have been unsuccessful in getting loans, and probably blame the banks. So, but no, all I can speak is for ourselves, and I was very, very pleased with how it worked out. So, and it has gave us the strength and ability to go forward, Yeah. So from that point of view, I'd say, yeah, definitely good.
I was chatting to a couple of range manufacturers recently, and they said that they've seen that some people have used the bounce back loan to sort of invest in the business. They didn't need it for whatever it was for. And I don't see the issue with that, because I still think that money is going to be used to regenerate the economy. If it's being spent on a frying range or replastering the restaurant, for argument's sake, or in general investiture into the business, I think that's great in my view. I think at 2%, and like you say, free for a year, I think that could really help a lot of businesses to invest in the future.
You know what, Still, is we've got to go back to work, right? We've got to go back to work, and we can't be going back to work to survive, right? If you're only going back to survive, then we're going to have a serious problem, right? You've got to go back to work and be able to make proper money, right? Proper profit, right? So there's definitely more that the government's going to have to do. I think, because if you're only about to survive, it ain't going to survive, right? Under these circumstances, we've got to go back to generate proper profit. And you know what? I personally, right, on the scale that we were, which was so many shops, and we've had more shops over the years, making profit was actually becoming harder and harder and harder, right? Because costs were going up, whether it be food costs, whether it be rates, VAT, I mean, insurance, you name it, it goes up, right? And of course, it's all right, so just put your prices up, right? But remember, it is a fish supper we're selling, right? So there's only so much you can really get. So as you put your price of fish supper up, your sales tend to stay reasonably stable. They don't go up. They don't go up with it, because you're definitely putting people off. If a fish supper costs £7.50 and now it's £8, people say, well, it's now £8. And also, I think you mentioned earlier on that the Aberdeen, for we are around the northeast, it has had a double hit with a decline in oil. So, sure, for many, many years, there was lots of disposable income, but people all of a sudden are looking at their income, and the humble fish supper has now became, it's more of a, put it this way, you can't afford to buy it every day, right? So it becomes a Friday thing, or maybe it becomes every second Friday, because, go to the fish and chip shop, where it might have cost £20 for the family, now would cost £30, so the price has definitely gone up. So again, because of the difficulties in which our sector is going to face when we go back, right through the hospitality and tourism industry, I think we need definite support from the government. I think VAT's the biggest thing. I think there could be a serious deduction in VAT, and if you do that, it will generate lots of profit, right? Yeah. And therefore, if you're generating profit, you say, well, hold on, that means that the guys that own the business will be making more money. Yeah, but generally, if you make more money, you feel more obliged to look after your staff, employ more people. You wouldn't be in business for 35 years if you only did it for yourself. Yeah, right? Of course. You've got to look after those round about you. But you can only look after those round about you if you're making good money. And going back to survive, that ain't going to work.
Yeah.
So the government needs to have a serious. But I think they are. I think they've behaved really well so far. I think they've listened. I think they're still listening. To see there has been a drop in rate. Like the rate here anyway will disappear. Now that's a great help.
Yeah.
But I think we just need a little bit more. And like I say, that profits became a bad word. That shouldn't be a bad word. I think profits, it should be looked upon as being great. You're making profit, good profit. Well done you. Well done you, because it doesn't just happen if you're a bad operator or you don't know what you're doing. You've got to work hard to make it. So let's hope and fingers crossed, because that's the final thing we need.
I was chatting to someone the other day, and he said it's only a theory at the moment, but because we're technically not outside of the European Union yet, they wouldn't be able to do anything drastic with VAT until we're out, and then they could probably reform it.
Well, I think I read, it was a couple of weeks ago now, but I think I read for the hospitality and tourism in Germany, they dropped it from something like 18 to 22 to 14 or 8. Yeah, that's substantial. That's fantastic. And then it was
the difference is, though, I think, and I'm not an accountant,
sure.
But I think the difference was, though, that they moved the restaurant rate and matched it with the takeaway rate, whereas in the UK we only have one rate.
Sure.
But again, I might be wrong because
but it's a flat rate, 8%.
Yeah.
I mean, if we got a flat rate, I'm saying 10%, right? 20%.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah, be amazing.
That'd be amazing. That would be amazing. It would be a game changer, and I do believe it would give us a bright future. I think you would need it for a couple of years, and then you can start creeping it back up again.
So I saw a poll on the fish and chip groups the other day, and it said, someone asked the question, I think it was Mark Drummond, asked the question, if VAT was reduced, what would you do as a shop owner? And I think the majority of people said keep the price the same. Now, in my mind, if the government saw that, they would say, why would we do that? Because that's not going to stimulate sales.
What? Okay, it would probably stop prices going up. Continue saying, haven't you, right? Also, when you start, very little difference in the supermarket, buying clothes, then you buy other things, cars. Cars, for example, vatable. So all of a sudden a car's cheaper, furniture's cheaper, everything you buy becomes cheaper. Right?
Yeah.
Naturally, so people then have got more money in their pockets. Everybody becomes a winner. I'm all for people saving money.
Yeah, I agree.
I think a drop in VAT definitely.
Yeah. Oh, massively. I just can't see how it wouldn't. And I actually think that maybe it's a good case to look at a lot of these taxes that are they're quite anti-business. And if they can free some of these things up moving forward and use COVID as the excuse to keep the country lean and on fire again, but how do you,
no point putting a deduction in corporation tax if you're not making.
No, exactly. Yeah, and it'd be a shame to just see it drop to 17.5%. It would feel like, what was the point? Like, it was a lot of,
If you remember, you're back to the facts, I think the Labour government during the financial crisis dropped it to 15, gave everybody a break. Conservatives came straight in. I thought they went straight to 20, but I think somebody corrected me the other day, and it went to 17.5 and very quickly up to 20. And that just helped no one. It's, like I say, it's been a series over the last 10 years. It's just been cost after cost after cost. I'm not saying it's taken enjoyment out of it, but it's made it a lot harder.
I think you're right. I think since the crash, like in 2008, that word austerity, like no one. And I think the good thing about this government is that they've seen that. and they've realised that you don't grow an economy by bootstrapping everybody. You need to let people go out and earn and do things. And I hope all the lessons have been learned, because if you look back on the 10 years, I wonder if we're any better off. As a country, we're probably not any better off.
No, not really. And it's a difficult one to get into the current how economics work worldwide, and financial markets, etc. How the hell they all work, because it would tie you up in knots. But hopefully that word austerity will be taken out of the dictionary shortly. So I'll just throw it out.
So how do you see like things with, like, let's say for example, Brexit? COVID, look at the Aberdeen. So, it's very reliant on the oil industry. Tell us a little bit about how you see all this working for your little sort of like where you are.
I think we're in a dangerous area. Aberdeen's it's been going through the mill recently. I can't see it getting a lot better anytime soon. With oils, see, we've been reliant on oil. Oil's a wonderful thing. Of course, they are changing now into renewables, etc. So they will get there. It's just that transformation. It's the uncertainty of people losing jobs, etc. But I think it'll be okay. I don't really think Brexit affects the oil. I think oil's more a worldwide thing. Brexit may affect the fishing, but again, they need to sort that out. It was all right when we were part of the EU, and I know you're allowed Spanish fishing and French fishing, and I believe a lot of this, a lot of the licenses that belong to Scots fishermen was sold to these people. So how do you get these back? That's a very political question. So I'm sure they'll sort it out. I'm sure they'll get to an answer. Of course, there was a time there where the fish prices were going through the roof, which is not good for anyone. Certainly in our sector, it's a disaster. It's okay if you're selling your product to France and you're getting top dollar, or in Spain. But for haddocks, we're predominantly haddock, but to buy the haddock at a price that becomes unaffordable, that's a big mistake. So hopefully that won't happen. But I think the fishermen, sure, everybody likes to get top price for what they sell, but I think there needs to be a leveling off. I think it needs to be a common sense approach, which I think they'll get there. It's how you sort all these situations out. They're probably going to have some sort of compromise. Like I said with the whole Brexit thing, people thought it'd be easy, and you know yourself. If you've got one wife, I was going to say that's bad enough, but I've got an adorable wife. But if you've got 27 wives, and you're packing them all in, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time. So it was never going to be a case that Brit could walk away from Brexit. With the upper hand, no chance. It was pie in the sky stuff. But like I say, that's politics. And at the time I voted for as a Remainer, because I thought, because of that situation, 21 versus 1 doesn't work. You don't stand a chance. I believe I believe in democracy. And once they voted for Brexit, it's fine. Let's just throw our weight behind it. I believe in buying British. I believe if you can buy British, and not that people are going to stop buying German cars, but I think they had to be a wee bit more forceful and say to Germany, right, here's an agreement, are you happy with that? And we'll continue to buy your cars. Speak to the French about their wines, speak to the Spanish about the tourism industry. So already I think you're seeing that the Spanish are now panicking because the Brits are not there. They need the Brits there because the Brits are the ones that spend all the money on drink and food. So there's all these things, but it's been a different chapter in my life, so to speak.
I think it's worth noting that in defence of not just the Scottish fishermen but British fishermen, that the common fisheries policy has been pretty harsh on them. I think I don't think anyone could deny that.
Again, as I say, I don't know the ins and outs of the fishing policies,
Yeah.
But like I say, I know when it was all hunky dory and there was many licenses sold for lots of money to French fishermen and Spanish fishermen, and they paid lots of money, so they are sitting in possession of these licenses, I would believe, right? So how do you get them back? Okay. How do you say, oh, by the way, from tomorrow you're not allowed in our waters? I don't know how you can do it. It's quite a difficult one. So the fishing's probably more complicated than people realise.
Yeah.
Although I might have it wrong, but
No,
it's
no.
quite a complicated
I think it's definitely going to be harder than what everyone assumes it'll be, and I think that's a fair point. I think it might be interesting to try get some like a fisherman on or someone in the know really from the fishing. But I think so. Again, just looking at one thing that it's always struck me as interesting is when the oil industry sort of flops, and I guess at the moment it's not strong price wise. How does that affect business?
Well, it does affect business. I mean, for many years. I mean, if I told you the history, it would probably bore you to tears. But in the early days, we opened our big restaurant in '85. We were inundated with Americans. There was Americans everywhere. Because they needed the American experience. Of course, they then got the experience from the Americans, and they were kind of put back to America. So, obviously our flock of guys have now been trained. So they're the guys who run the North Sea now. But I remember the early days when the guys would come in from our lunch from an oil company, and as they came to paying their bill, they would all fight to who's paying the bill, and they would all throw their credit cards at you. There was credit cards flying everywhere, and money just didn't matter. Money didn't matter. Going out for your lunch was a normal occurrence. That's all stopped now. That's completely stopped now. We've still got quite a lot of oil companies around about where we are, and they'll come in for their lunch and they'll all pay separately, and they'll all pay their £10 each, because no one's paying. Occasionally, when somebody's leaving, what leaving do, because the boss will still have his card to use, so that's a free lunch for them. But the days of that are long gone. So has it changed our business? Yeah, business has changed. It's probably more normal now. Where you're relying on people being your customers, being your customers, your friends, regular people every Friday. So it's definitely. But we still feed off the oil industry. We still have parties, and we do a lot of fundraising nights. So there's a lot of oil companies get involved in charity fundraising. So they'll come to us, and we'll raise money for them, and by way of bingo nights or race nights, whatever. So it's part of the city. It's part of the city, and we're used to it.
Tell us a little bit about that, because it seems like you've got this system in place where a lot of fundraising happens within your big location. I don't know if you spreads out to your other ones, but within your original site. What is it that you're doing there to make it easy for people?
We've got a back room to our restaurant, seats about 100 people. So when, of course, going back to that big shopping malls opening up, and I found that our restaurant was sitting quiet on a Saturday night after 7 o'clock, I thought, there's an idea. I'd been to a race night. I thought, I could do that. So I set up a race night, and it was very successful, hiring all the stuff in. And then I did another one. And by the third one I did, I'd bought a projector, I'd bought discs from the internet, I'd bought tickets for selling as little raffles. And then fast forward 7 or 8 years, we now produce all our own tickets, we produce our own discs, we do bingo nights, we do quiz nights. In the big restaurant, all in all, between 4 different outlets, we carry out very, very close to 200 fundraisers a year. 200, which was of the average almost 4 a week. They're fantastic. They're fun. I compare a lot of them myself. Another couple of the managers do it. I would say that we're pretty good at it. They're all pretty good at it. The banter's good, and of course we're raising a lot of money. So I mean, last year and the year before and the year before that, we smashed through £200,000 every year. So some people walk out and raise £400. Some people raise £4,000. It really depends what you want out of it. It's become a large part of our business. Very successful. I think this year there may not be any fundraisers. We had 187 booked in. We may not be able to carry out any this year. Who knows? But I think they'll come back next year with a vengeance, because of course charities they're probably the most affected out of this whole thing. So they will definitely want to come back next year as soon as the green light's there, and they'll want to come back, and we'll look forward to it. It's because, like I say, if that's your job, if that's what you do, is go along and sit down at 7:30 at night, and everyone's had fish and chips, and you go and entertain them for 2.5 hours, and you actually happen to make £2,500 for them. There's nothing more satisfying than that. So it's a great part of the business, and it's something I've been humbled to be able to do. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, really. That's a lot of money. And one of the other things that intrigued me, and I was reading up on you earlier, I've met you before, but it was just an article that I read, and it said that you didn't ever mean to work at the Ashvale. You thought this was like a part-time sort of job or something.
I've always have been into sport. Sport's always been, anything to do with sport, and I was your man, with football and whatever, tennis, golf. I do a lot. I'm going to play golf shortly, actually. But I plan to be a PE teacher. So I went to school, and PE was my favourite subject. I got on well with the teachers. I still do. Still them come in and see me in the restaurant. So PE teaching was probably the thing I wanted to do. And at the time, I was accepted to college in Glasgow. And I kind of thought, this time I was obviously 18. I'd been working in the Ashvale since just before I was 16. So John, who's my business partner, he actually says, "How do you fancy being part of the management team? Come on, be a trainee manager." And I went to college. I did some management courses at college. And the reason I did it is because I was actually really enjoying what I did. I actually enjoyed working in the fish and chip shop. The business was early days. It was young. And then, of course, very early in my career, we went on to win the Fish and Chip Shop Awards, which kind of gave us a platform to start to expand the business. Rightfully or wrongfully, I suppose if you look back, you think, should we have done that? Some things have worked well, some things not so well. But that really was it. So I never really looked back. I made up my mind. I kind of liked doing what I did. I found it not only enjoyable and actually you could make a good living at it. I actually really, really enjoyed it, and that was the most important thing. I always went about with a smile on my face. I enjoy what I'm doing, whether it's producing good fish and chips or chatting to customers or fundraising. These things have always just been in my kind of bred into me, that as long as you're enjoying it, because I've always said to people, if you don't enjoy it, really, you should go and do something else, because that's not fun either, But I've always enjoyed it, and I still do. And like I say, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to get back to work on Monday. To open them doors with some butterflies, but we'll get selling the old fish and chips again and see where it takes us. So
that's all you can do. But like you say, hopefully it's not too much carnage on Monday, and it's all manageable. But I'd like to thank you for your time today, mate. And
it's been a pleasure. It's been nice talking to you
again, and I hope you enjoy your golf afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll look forward to seeing you up my way with your trying to flog me some batter mixes shortly, So
you never know.
I'm always keen. I'm always interested. Absolutely.
Well, we'll talk soon then, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Delius.